You may recall a couple sessions back, we had an actual, getting a lot of experience points kind of session. Just wanted to throw out a little bit of an update on that before we get started with the actual session. I've got 4 experience points to spend. I've been exploring my options a little bit. Here's where I've kind of landed after thinking a lot about what I want to take and why. I think the next thing that I would like for Emile is I want to have him set up an area of the ship as a workshop. He's always been a pretty crafty character, and I want to continue to lean into that a little bit more. The workshop alone would give me an ability that would let me repair things better. That's less what I'm into, though. What I really want would also require buying a second feature of the workshop, which is when you swear an iron vow to undertake a long-term engineering project, extreme or greater, re-roll any dice. When you obtain a crucial part or resource, mark progress on your quest and take +2 momentum. When you devote extended time to the project in your workshop, face danger and add +1. On a hit, mark progress. On a strong hit with a match, mark progress twice. When you fulfill your vow and score a hit, mark 1 extra box on your quest's legacy track. The reason I'm interested in this is, as we look out ahead to kind of long-term stuff, as Emile keeps focusing on VY572 sort of things, I think he's going to need to keep crafting pretty large-scale devices or modifying his ship in particularly large ways to have any kind of chance against a beast that giant. You're talking about something the size of a nebula. A regular ship isn't going to do it, so I think Emile is going to have to wind up taking some long-term engineering projects, and so I want to lay the groundwork on that now. The problem is, in order to get that ability, I actually need 1 more experience point because I would need to spend 3 to buy the module and then another 2 to upgrade it. So basically, I'm holding off for the next time I get experience to just blow that all in one go and have just a workshop where he can get to work on something long-term. Don't even know exactly what it's going to be yet, but certainly something that would allow him to withstand some colossal hits, all kinds of things like that. Anyway, just wanted to give you a bit of an update on why I haven't spent the experience yet, and why I'm still not going to have over the course of this session. Well, maybe if I get another 2 points of experience, but I don't anticipate it. Haven't actually recorded it yet, but about to do that, and you're about to listen to it.
Stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series.
We're back to playing a session through the eyes of Emile Spencer, I promise, but last time, we took a bit of a break from that and did things a little bit differently. We played through the point of view of a character named Vert, one of 3 individuals that are stranded on the unnamed planet that Fern calls home. We followed the course of a dangerous mission where they needed to get a signal out so that they could deliver their SOS. The problem was that there was too much cloud cover, so Vert had to travel to an abandoned military facility that was still full of all kinds of bombs and weaponry. Went in there, with the help of an artificial intelligence loaded into his comlink, they were able to have a bomb explode in the upper atmosphere, which blew enough of a hole in the cloud cover in order to get a weak signal out. Where we left off, Emile received that signal. But we also, at the very tail end, found out that Dash, one of the other people stranded on the planet and injured, is apparently a member of the Vault Hunters. And when his email updated through the now accessible internet of the sector, he found out about the whole Emile Spencer's public enemy #1 business going on. With that in mind, I'm going to do something that I was planning on doing anyway, just slightly delayed. That feels like it's basically representing, if you recall, we have a bit of a ticking clock on Emile's vow that I will make amends to the people of Concord with the gift of a power core. We're currently at 2 segments out of 10 on that, both in terms of Emile's side of the vow, but also the danger that he's up against. If you don't recall, this is poaching some of the rules from the Ironsworn supplement Delve, where we are up against a threat. And so this is like the threat clock that we're up against. So usually when you have not been working on a vow for a long enough time or have a significant failure in the course of trying to make it, the threat advances. And that advances the agenda of the person that you're up against, in this case Valkyrie, all the way back on Cinder. So usually you would expect that something like the message finally being received by Dash and that whole crew would be part of this clock advancing. And so it's all tied up similarly enough that before we get started, I'm going to advance that threat one more time and see what happens. So specifically why we are triggering the advance a threat move is the first of the triggers. We have been ignoring a situation or dealing with more pressing matters. We've been dealing with getting Fern back to their planet and not at all about making amends to the people of Concord with the gift of a power core. We know what our next step is. We know how to get that power core. We've not been doing it. So since we've been pursuing another quest, it's high time that I trigger this move. What happened at the end of last session just kind of reminded me that we should do this again. So when you give ground to a threat through inaction, failure, or delay, roll on the table below and envision how the change manifests in your world. So this is a D100 roll, and we get a 92, which on this table says, the threat makes a dramatic and immediate move, or a major event reveals new complications. Mark Menace twice. So I'm going to mark the Menace twice, bringing us up to 4 hits on the clock. Part of that is definitely going to be wrapped up in what we established last time, which is the immediate threat of this crew is aware that Emile is public enemy number 1 to the Vault Hunters, and they are Vault Hunters. But I feel like that's not worthy of marking Menace twice. That's maybe one of them. But we need something a little bit more dramatic and immediate. Some way that the threat goal of have Emile killed in service of revenge can be brought more to the forefront. Now I'm still going to keep this relatively simple, but I had an idea on how to make this all work. Because we've actually got a lot of plates spinning right now, and one of those spinning plates is in the brig on the Stardust. As you recall, the captain has been knocked out and placed in the brig, but his body is being occupied by the essence of the Wooden Heart, an old god that's in orbit around Anubis. That god has been trying desperately to get somebody to bring them back into full being, get that Wooden Heart beating again. It's also been responsible for a lot of just internal strife in groups during this whole sector. Its influence is wide-reaching and subtle. But I think when that signal comes through, and when Dash is listening to it out loud, his ears aren't the only ones listening. Sure, it's very far away. The Stardust is still in orbit around that planet, nowhere immediately nearby. But we're talking about the awareness and the attention of a god. An old, old god. Their ears are listening to so many things. And I think in particular they are focused on sources of strife. And so when this Wooden Heart is listening out and hears Dash hearing this signal and senses that kind of clash, it has an angle here. And it's going to try and focus on that wedge to split between Emile and the crew of the Crux. Because the wheels in the Wooden Heart's head are turning, and it's recognizing that Emile might not be someone they can work with, but perhaps the crew of the Crux would be a little bit more amenable. And so this 4th threat box that we are filling in is representative of how not only is the crew of the Crux aware, but an old god is going to be trying to take advantage of that, and as something of an outside agent, going to be helping to advance Valkyrie's agenda. And so to make the begin a session move complete, we've already done a bit of a recap. Let's make this a full-on vignette. And this time the vignette is going to be inside the brig, where the captain is coming back into consciousness, being roused by the luring whispers of the Wooden Heart.
Rise, my child. You and I have both slumbered too long.
And the captain's eyes begin to flutter open. It seems like in an ordinary mortal creature, they would have been knocked out for longer than this, but under the influence of the Wooden Heart, it can be pulled away from this kind of unconsciousness a little bit earlier. Up until this point, there was no reason, but the heart continues its whispers.
There are soon to be others joining. You're free. freedom will come, but we must play innocent. Lie low, be their friend, and they will set us free. Let Emile seem crazy. Be his friend.
The captain looks up, and we see the green glow of their eyes begins to dim lighter and lighter. And the captain, in their own senses, while it's still a little bit tinted green but not fully, begins to kind of whimper and says, "Wait, where are you going? I feel you leaving. Please, please don't let me go. Come back. I can't go back to the way it was. Not now. Not now when I felt what I felt. Not when I've been one with you."
Be still, my child. I am not abandoning you. I simply must relinquish control, slumbering ever present in the background of your mind. I shall return, of that you must have no doubt. When the time is right, when you have shown them that you are no threat and earned your freedom, then I will return, and I will return in full.
And at that, the last of the green, dim glow fades out of the captain's eyes, and he's left to just his own thoughts. Sitting there in the brig, he sobs quietly in the corner. He'll be back. 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 Alright, with that vignette set, let's officially give ourselves that +1 momentum from the begin a session move, which starts us off at a nice high +7, so we're getting ready to roll with this. And speaking of getting ready to roll, Emile in the cockpit with Fern right there by his side. They are deorbiting quickly, trying to get down to the coordinates that they heard in the SOS message. As they deorbit, Emile certainly sees the giant hole in the clouds spanning miles. Miles and miles of just this hole in the, not like full-on hole in the atmosphere kind of thing, but just like the separation and allowing the light to go in, which is hitting down on the facility. I think, actually, let's determine whether 50-50 shot, is it currently daylight here? Like, in this area, is light now coming through, or would it be night anyway? And the answer to that is no. It would be night here anyway, so it's still dark all around, but no doubt Emile can still detect the ashy cloud cover is way less prominent here. There's just this complete absence of it. Still probably the lingering effects of just things that are just settling after the blast. Emile can still make out the jet stream of the missile that is launched from the facility, and I don't think there's even a roll involved for him to put together what happened. With the Wits 3 that he has, he's able to piece together that, like, clearly this hole was made in the atmosphere so the signal could get out. He's ahead of the story, basically. He can make out the fact that the building has partially collapsed and recognizes that the shockwave was obviously quite large. Now that the stardust is below the thick layer of ash in the atmosphere, Emile begins sending out hails of his own on all frequencies, calling out to anybody he could hear. "This is Emile Spencer of the Stardust. I have received your SOS. Please respond." Over in the cockpit of the Crux on the ground, one of these hails does eventually cut through. The radio kicks on to life, and despite their leg being wounded, Dash sits up quickly to get back at the controls, excited to hear a voice that is clearly not Vert's. Hope rekindled. Dash gets back on the comm, and before he can fully register what he heard and the fact that that name Emile Spencer means something extra to him, he begins guiding Emile's ship down. Yes, this is Dash of the Crux. You have reached us. Can you hear me? Yeah, I've got you. You're coming in a little bit faint, but I read you. Having a little bit of trouble locating you. Can you see my ship? Can you help guide? And Dash, I think, is literally just pulling out a pair of, like, binoculars and searching the horizon and stuff. Negative, Mr. Spencer. You're too dim against the black skies. Can you shine your lights? My ship's power is unavailable. I cannot do it. Can you make yourself a beacon, and then I can guide you in? Flicking them on and off now. Look for a blinking star. Scanning. Yes, I have you. Okay. And I think clearly they'd be able to work together and guide Emile down. There'd be no particular role. All of this would be relatively simple. But it's during this process that Dash finally fully recognizes he knows that name. And with the radio switched back off, just kind of listening to Emile in the background talking through his approach, Dash pulls back up the email that he had received, the notice regarding Emile Spencer. He flicks the radio back on.
I can't tell you how fantastic it is to hear somebody else's voice. Thank you, thank you. You said your name was... What did you say your name was again?
And I'm going to give Emile an opportunity here because Dash is not specifically a talented liar or anything like that. And I think there's a chance for Emile to pick up that there's something more to this request, that Dash hasn't actually forgotten there's something untoward going on here. We're going to start this off with a secure an advantage with wits, because I feel like this is definitely representative of Emile assessing the situation with expertise, focus, or observation. Is he able to pick up on this subtlety? So with this roll we get... Okay, we have a weak hit that I could burn momentum to turn into a strong hit. I'm not so inclined to do that. We could choose one. Either take the momentum or add +1 on your next move. I think this is going to be about the +1. I don't need the momentum at the moment, and also, narratively, Emile is picking up on the fact that there's more to this. He doesn't know why Dash is lying about forgetting his name, but he knows that he is. And that +1 is going to represent Emile's wheels kind of spinning a little bit. He'll have a better ability to figure out what's going on when he gathers information, which is going to happen next. Because there's something that's just kind of bothering him about the tone in the voice that changed when Dash asked that question. There's just something a little bit off about it. And especially knowing that he's guiding himself towards an unknown position, and it would hardly be the first time that an SOS was a bit of a trap, Emile wants to gather information to find out what is he getting into. And so I think what makes sense is, up until this moment, he's been reacting very imminently to the SOS and making sure everybody is okay. But he's going to delay the flying in just a little bit, slowing down to give himself time to look through his own repository of the sector internet to do a little bit of research on registered ships. What's known about the Crux? He's got time. The +1 is representative of how he's wary enough to be looking out for things that might not have otherwise stood out to him. But while he does that, he does indeed still respond, "My name's Emile Spencer. Can I get yours?" And Dash indeed responds,
You may call me Dash. Hopefully soon I'll be introducing you to Vert and Ironsides.
And so while Emile's kind of listening to this, he's doing that research on everything he can pull up about the Crux from his current version of the internet. So we're doing a gather information with a +1. We get another weak hit. And this one, I have no ability to improve through momentum. It is a good thing I used that +1 though, because without it, this would have been a full-on miss. On a weak hit, the information provides new insight, but also complicates your quest. Envision what you discover, then take +1 momentum. So I think it's pretty clear that he does discover this is a Vault Hunter ship. It is registered with it. And Emile is smart enough to put together that change in tone must be that Emile Spencer's reputation precedes him. And so I think knowing all of this, or at least having a strong hunch, and knowing that currently he's got the upper hand, both in terms of the situation and also like literally in terms of elevation, he will never be as safe as this to press the issue. Like if he lands right now, who knows what he's walking into? It sounds like he could be outnumbered pretty quickly, and that would be a real problem. But if for the moment he's flying in the air, he's going to try and use this opportunity to compel Dash that, hey, you may have heard some things about me, but ... Emile flips the radio back on and says, "So the Crux, I feel it's a familiar name. Is this a Vault Hunter ship?" And Dash responds a little bit tepidly to that, and with good reason. I forget if I've mentioned this in previous episodes or not, but in my thinking about the world, vault hunting is illegal. Like, the Imperium has... The reason the location of these vaults is so prized and sought after, why you have to hunt for it, is that the Imperium has purged as much information as they can about them from their mind in order to protect society. They think these vaults are very dangerous to the fabric of, like, everything. Opening them would be a big problem, and so they have made it illegal and try and keep everybody from hunting these vaults. So in any kind of situation, the question, are you a vault hunter ship, to a stranger is, it's a little bit of a tense situation, but especially in this one. However, Dash does respond,
I hope that isn't a problem.
and Emile says back, I think that might depend on you, actually.
I don't follow.
I think you do. I think my name carries a little bit of a history with it with the Vault Hunters. We've had some scrapes, and I think you know that. So can we just be square with each other and put it all on the table? I'm Emile Spencer. You're a Vault Hunter. Emile Spencer is not a name that's especially loved by the Vault Hunters right now. Can we all just agree to that? Dash pauses for a moment to think about it, and then responds,
If such a thing were true, all of those things that you just claimed, a person in my position would be heavily incentivized to deny all of it. After all, you're the mechanism of my rescue right now. I'm incentivized to say whatever it is you want to hear, so what is it you'd like to hear, Emile Spencer? And I shall agree to it if it means our rescue. We're at your mercy.
No, none of that shit. Listen, you're gonna get rescued one way or another. That's not what this is about. Now, the exact manner of your rescue will determine whether or not you're going to be upfront with me, or if I gotta put you in one of the holding cells. But you're getting off this planet, and you're gonna be treated just fine. This is all just about making sure we can all be safe. So, I'll say it again. Is that this tension that's going on here? Are you a Vault Hunter who's heard of Emile Spencer?
You have the right of it all, Mr. Spencer. What do we do from here?
Well, the first thing we do from here is you hear my heartfelt apology. I don't know what you've heard, what you've read, but I've hurt your people. This ship that I'm flying right now, taken from them in my own desperation. And I'm sorry for all the things I've done to hurt and kill members of the Vault Hunters. I will spend the rest of my life wondering what I could have done to avoid that kind of harm. But importantly, wondering isn't all I'm doing. If I weren't here right now, in the middle of rescuing you and, Vert and Ironsides, was it? If I weren't here working with you, I would be in the middle of trying to make amends to the people of Concord. I have a power core that I am going to be picking up and delivering to make good on what I've taken from them as best I can. I can't return lives, but I can return their attempts towards secrecy. So with all of that in mind, I hope that the two of us can start healing this wound, and that maybe with your help, maybe we'll be able to part ways in peace. So I ask you this, can I take the brig off the table? You don't have to like the name Emile Spencer, you don't have to like what he or I did to your people. We can walk away from this all enemies if you want. I hope not. But for the purposes of this journey and just getting you off the planet, can we set all of that aside for now? Can we just deal with the situation at hand and give me a chance to show you that I'm not the monster that Valkyrie wants you to think I am? And so we're going to cap this all off with a compel roll. At most, he's lied a little bit about, yeah, he's also here on this planet for Fern, but most of this is not a lie. It is mostly about just trying to charm him. Charming Dash into accepting that they can be enemies later. So I'm going to roll plus heart. Now I have a weak hit that I could burn momentum to turn into a strong hit, and I feel like this is a perfect opportunity. Without getting a nice strong hit on this could be a real thorn in the goals right now. So we're going to do that. Set our momentum all the way back to +2. So they'll do what you want or agree to your conditions, take +1 momentum. So our momentum is back to +3, and more importantly, Dash, very resigned, does agree to set it all aside for now.
You know, you don't have to make such speeches. I'm a very reasonable man. As I said at the beginning, you have the upper hand here. You have me at your mercy. I'm just somebody stranded on a planet, wounded with my crew, looking to escape.
Now, because we got a strong hit and that involves getting +1 momentum, I think what that's going to represent is Dash is going to add to this a little bit and say to Emile,
"You are right, however, to be nervous around Vault Hunters. You should know that being in your position as a public enemy of our group, it is not something to be taken lightly. I don't take it lightly. Being the outlaws that we are, we have to look after our own, and with that comes an amount of trust. That when somebody goes through the effort to label somebody a public enemy, it is earned. I don't know exactly what you did, but I know you did not get it for no reason. And so I agree to put that aside for now, but know that the two of us are not square. And moreover, I do not speak for my comrades. Making amends with me will not make amends with the Vault Hunters. Having labeled you the public enemy, only Valkyrie can take it away. And more importantly, the rest of my crew may not be as amenable. I hope they are. It would complicate my life certainly if Vert does not agree to set it aside, but would not be the first time that Vert has complicated my life."
Emile, despite not being in the same room, nods his head and goes, "It's more than fair. You're all individuals. I thank you for seeing to reason. I feel like that's something the two of us have in common. I'm going to pick you up. Let's go find Vert and Ironsides together." Now, before we do that specifically, I think I am going to give Emile a hit on I will make amends to the people of Concord with the gift of a power core, because he does now know that making amends can only officially happen through Valkyrie. It's not like he has another angle to just convince enough other people. Valkyrie is going to have to sign off on him, which means he's going to have to get back in contact or get back to Cinder or something like that, but he can't make amends from afar. And while I'm sure he always more or less thought of it that way, the certainty of how the Vault Hunters work as an organization is worth that hit of progress. So with Dash's guidance, Emile indeed touches down nearby and gets out to meet him. He sees Dash hobbling along with his wounded leg and helps him back onto the ship. They talk about how they'll be able to get him into the medbay and treat that in a bit, but both agree that the bigger priority is finding out what happened to Vert and Ironsides. Now, we know from last session that there was a collapse and it dealt 1 health to Vert, but I'm going to actually do this as Emile flies over to that area and goes to the facility. We're going to treat exactly his state at the moment with a gather information roll. Because now that we're not playing him as a character, time has passed a little bit. The building was unstable. There could have been more collapses, all kinds of things. We need to find him. So we're going to gather information to search for clues, conduct an investigation, analyze evidence, just scanning from afar to find where is Vert. And while I could maybe configure my ship's scanning systems to do this better, I don't think that's really going to be involved. This is just going to be a straight gather information roll. So plus wits, and we get... Ooh, this is a miss. Your investigation unearths a dire threat or reveals an unwelcome truth that undermines your quest. Pay the price. So in this case, because the stakes are a little bit low in terms of what can immediately happen to Emile, the price is going to be more related to what's going on with Vert. And because this is described as a dire threat, or an unwelcome truth that undermines the quest is to find Vert and get to him. And I think the problem is that not only has more of the building collapsed, but they can only fly so close to it without risking just the ship itself causing more damage to the building and causing even greater collapse. In addition, in this process, Emile has gotten into radio contact with Vert, who is responding via the comlink.
"I read you, and I am inside the facility, but my exit point has been cut off. There's too much rubble everywhere. I'm trapped. If you're here to rescue me, I'm going to need additional help."
Now, due to Vert's strong power armor and everything, and because this is... We know how things were when we last left him, I'm not going to risk that he's injured anymore. His armor can take a hell of a blow, but he is trapped in the rubble and can't seem to get out. I think it's fair to say that he is pinned, and that's part of why he just can't muster the strength to break it off of him. He's apparently able to access the comlink at least, but that's about it.
"Is Dash there with you?
I'm here, Vert. Don't worry, we're going to get you out. And then clicks off the radio for a moment and turns to Emile and says, aren't we? Emile immediately reassures him, saying, yes, of course, I'm not going to abandon you. We're going to get Vert out of there. Flicks the radio back on. Vert, just hold tight. We got to figure out a safe way to get to you so the rest of us don't get trapped as well, but I promise you I'm going to get you out. I think he says this with his hand still on the radio button and technically touching iron. Emile is more and more often accidentally swearing on iron. But let's do this. It's just going to be troublesome. This should be a pretty quick vow. But let's swear that we're going to rescue Vert from inside the rubble. So, rescue Vert from the facility. Troublesome vow. Let's make our heart roll to swear it on iron, and let's see what happens. Alright, start this off with a nice strong hit. You are emboldened and it is clear what you must do next. Take +2 momentum. So the reason why it's clear what we have to do next is Emile is able to determine very quickly that obviously there's this great big powered door stopping them from just the main entry point of the facility, and while in normal circumstances it would be easy enough to just, with the power of a starship, blast that down, the building being in the state it's in, not wanting to cause further collapse, and also not knowing exactly where Vert is inside, they could be damaged by that blast. That's off the table. So Emile questions Vert about how exactly it is that he got inside. It's like, it doesn't look like you used the door to get in or anything. There can't be any power to that place. How did you get in there? And Vert tells him about the sewer access. And so Emile looks to Dash, sees his wounded leg and that they haven't had time to fix it up or anything, and says, that doesn't exactly sound like a place that's well suited for you. Alright, stick around here. I'm heading inside. I'm going to get him. If there is any trouble, if somehow I get trapped as well, I guess see what you can do to blast the door down. But don't do it unless it's absolutely necessary.
You've got it.
Now, much as they've been kind of... Emile is not so stupid as to just leave Dash entirely in control of this ship. He doesn't want to be abandoned. He doesn't want Vert messing around with anything. He knows this would be a bad time to just be like, alright, here are the keys. Don't leave me behind. Don't shoot down the door and kill me. That would be bad. So I think he is going to very quickly activate a lockout to make sure that most of the ship can't be accessed without his approval. Now, ordinarily, I might say Emile can just pull this off, but Ironsides was mentioned last time as being Dash's life's work. I think Dash knows a thing or two about computer systems and electronics and AI and things like that. If they wanted to, they could definitely break through some encryptions and stuff. So we're going to make Emile do this role just to demonstrate, like, for the purposes of if Dash decides to go up against it, what's going to happen. So let's do this as secure an advantage. This is definitely Emile making preparations with wits. He is definitely configuring an electronic system. So wits with a +1, and we have a strong hit. Oh yeah, the challenge dice didn't even try. It was a 1 and a 2. You succeed, take 2 momentum, add +1 on your next move, not a progress move. Easily done. Emile has his lockout in place. That shouldn't be a problem. Now what Emile has not thought about, and is not going to do anything about, is during the time that he's gone, Dash might do some wandering around the ship, and may just find out about the captain. But that's a problem for a different time. Sorry, I don't mean that in the sense of like, that's a question for next time. Not that, but that's a problem for later. For now, Emile gears up, gives a last assurance to Fern on his way out, because Fern has got not an expression, but a color of just doubt and a little bit of fear and all of that. And Emile kneels down and assures Fern, don't worry, I'm going to be back. Look after the ship for me, and then we're getting you home. That is very next on the docket. I just got to rescue somebody in trouble. Be right back. And he hustles out the door and makes his way towards the sewer entrance. The manhole cover should still be open just as Vert left it. I don't think he would have bothered sealing it up behind him in a abandoned city like this. I think because mobility is probably going to be a factor, Emile is not going to be wearing the magnetized spacesuit. It would just be too bulky. It's not really meant for this kind of operation that might involve an amount of squeezing and stuff. It's just not well suited to the operation, especially because he wants to make sure it doesn't get torn by anything. So that's getting left behind. Mobility belt he would probably bring. And let's see, is there any last kind of ad hoc device that I would want him to make. Nothing in advance. I think he's got his standard kind of equipment. He heads into the sewer. Now, I don't want to devote too much time to this rescue operation. We're just going to kind of run through this relatively quickly, but the first real obstacle that Emile would have as he goes through the sewer system, I don't think he would have trouble piecing together where to go in the same sort of way that Vert did. Like, he sees where he has to get to, he can count paces and go in the same sort of direction. The biggest problem is just the hole that Vert made is blocked up with rubble right now. That's just, there's nothing that, it's no longer just a hole that he can climb through. It's got to be cleared. Now, I think what he would try and do in order to get past this problem, like he can't just blast the rocks out of the way. That would be too big of a problem. But I am going to have him modify his gun a little bit in kind of the same sort of way that we once saw him do many, many sessions ago when trapped underneath rocks of his own to try and melt it away. He's done this sort of thing before. It's probably going to take him a little bit of time, but nothing too bad. He is going to try and modify his blaster to be more of just like a prolonged heat exposure kind of thing that he can use to just melt his way through the rocks rather than like blast it out of the way. So because of our gearhead, we'll get to add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. I'm not going to make use of the additional scavenger asset to make this me making a tool that gives me a +1 and all of that. That's not really... I'm not scavenging together and putting together a little thing out of this. I'm just modifying my gun. So we're just going to use gearhead. This is going to be a wits move again, adding the +1. I'm going to do this as a face danger rather than secure an advantage because I think the danger when you're monkeying around with the way a gun works is kind of inherent. So you can certainly set things off or make it so it misfires when you finally use it, stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you do it well. So anyway, wits with a +1 to make this gun modified the proper tool that he needs, and we get... Oh, I'm sorry. Wits with a +2 because our secure and advantage is also giving us a +1. Oh, and despite all of that, a 9 and a 10 on the challenge dice, and only a 1 on the action die. I'm glad I wasn't using any kind of thing that's breaking on this. This is a full-on miss. You fail, or a momentary success is undermined by a dire turn of events. Pay the price. That has got to be that he thinks he succeeds, but while we did this last time on a rifle, the kind of modification that Emile has to do to make this work, it's going to totally overload something as small as just his like little blaster, his little handgun. This thing can't take it. It doesn't have the same sort of shielding, and so I think while he's successful at the modification, in the moment he doesn't fully think through the heat dissipation aspect, and it goes not only as it's firing out, but also into the handle. He starts using it to try and melt away the rocks. And in that process, the heat goes out into his hands. He burns himself and drops the gun. And now, like, it's done to do, like, prolonged heat blasting out. And so I think it continues going even after he's not holding it is the other problem. So now there's just, like, a loose gun firing like a heat ray in the room with him, spinning around as it hits the floor and clatters around. It's making basically an erratic heat ray. So it not only burns his hand immediately, which is going to make me suffer -1 health, and I'm going to try and endure that. But even afterwards, now there's this peril in the room to have to try and dodge and like avoid having future problems with it. So, first things first, the health -1. I'm going to try and endure that harm, and we get a weak hit. I could make it into a strong hit, but on a weak hit, since I'm not wounded, I could just lose 1 momentum for the health back, which is what I'm going to do. The burning his hand stalls him a little bit. He definitely loses a little bit of that just like devoted progress towards this all. We're a little bit farther from the goal. It clatters across the room, and now for the rest of that miss, like I talked about, we got to avoid there being a problem, so we need to face danger from this just heat blast around the room. This is definitely an agility thing, but also something that the mobility belt could definitely help me with. So, this is a face danger with edge, +1 from the mobility belt as we try and just get out of the way in time. I think also his AR, this is not going to give me an additional bonus on the dice, but part of the reason why this makes sense is his AR is watching the scene and giving a little bit of that highlight of like making the line of heat more visible by using some thermals and adding that onto his regular vision to show like, here's the heat blast, here's what you have to avoid. So it's like how it would be easier to navigate a laser grid when you can see the lasers, even if it's still difficult to do it. So, edge with a +1. As he tries to avoid future harm from this. And this time we get Man, another time where the challenge dice were really high, but I did get a weak hit on this. And importantly, I did not break the mobility belt. I did not roll a 1 on the action die. So I succeed, but not without a cost. Make a suffer move -1. I think I'm inclined to again take this to the momentum where I'm successful, so I don't get hit by it. I'm not taking this to health, but this does definitely stall things because it takes a moment. I have to keep dodging it while it clatters around, and it's we got to be careful to approach it. Like, I'm going to rule that this edge move is not only dodging the initial heat blast of it, but also a little bit of getting in the right position to be able to shut it back down. It's all of that, and all of that takes time. So while it is eventually successful, momentum does go down to 5. So now Emile needs to do this a little bit differently. I still feel like the best approach is to try and melt these rocks, just because he's certainly not strong enough and doesn't have a lot of gear to be able to move them otherwise. But clearly he can't hold on to the gun as is. Like, it's just going to burn his hand again. So I think he just needs to make... He's going to cobble together just a little bit of a thing to hold the gun in position aimed at the right place. And this time we are using Scavenger, as we just find bits of broken rubble and stuff in the sewer to just make a little bit of a thing that'll hold the gun steady, because that's the important part. It's not just that he props it up on something, but it needs to keep it in the right position, because when it fires, it's going to kind of vibrate a little bit. It needs to be more than just like, you put it on a rock, why are you making a move about this? It needs to be nice. So let's scavenge together the materials to do that. This is going to be, again, wits with a +1 to try and just secure an advantage to make this little gun holder. A shooting platform. Okay, and we get strong hit with a match, and a double 8 match at that. So I want to say that not only does he make this, but we're going to find something when we're scavenging around. So we take 2 momentum from the secure an advantage. We will get to add 1 when we make the move to melt the rocks. We also get a +1 on our next move because of the secure an advantage, so we're going to get a +2 to that. But in addition, with a double 8 match, we're going to find something super cool in there. Let's use some oracles to determine what else do I find that was discarded in the sewers. I'm going to try doing this by rolling action and theme to see if that helps inspire what type of thing this would be. And if that doesn't work, we'll do some other ones. But action and theme give me deliver and balance. Something that would help deliver balance. Well, okay, you know what could be really good about this? We're directly beneath a military installation, right? Like, it would make sense that there's kind of weaponry related things in here, and we're even trying to make a thing that would hold a gun steady. I just rolled deliver balance. What if just lost in the sewer somebody did, like, there's like a gun mounting system that's here that like is just down here in the waters. He's fishing around and he finds it, and he literally finds exactly what he's looking for. He's ready to cobble together like rocks and bars and rebar and shit, and instead finds like, oh, or I could just have this exact thing that does the job. It is fully operational. It will even, on this being a full double 8 match, I'm going to say he doesn't have to, like, it'll hold it out from his body. This is like an extension arm that's on, it's kind of like a Steadicam arm kind of thing. It sticks out from his torso, but he can manipulate it with his computer to like control exactly where it is. It's now basically a smart gun system. Now the gun itself is still not that powerful, but this is a smart gun platform that'll just be aimable by his computer. A totally awesome find. It also means that he doesn't have to hold it while it delivers the heat. Awesome. Importantly, this change means that I no longer have to worry about the device breaking if I roll a 1. We didn't truly cobble it together, it's how we got here, but this won't be as flimsily broken. Or maybe I should still keep that. It was discarded in a sewer. Maybe it is still at least a little bit flimsy. I kind of like that idea. It's no longer that it will only last so long because we made it. It's that if I roll a 1, it'll be broken and I need to repair it because it's just been sitting in the water in a sewer for forever degrading. So cool. Won't be lost forever, but still might be lost. Anyhow, let's make that face danger with a +2 that I was talking about to melt these rocks. This time, because we don't have to use our own edge, because it's not our own hand holding it and aiming or anything like that, I think we can get away with doing this with wits again. Like, we're just programming the gun to aim in the right place. It's computer controlled. We can even analyze and determine, like, set it up to like automated carve its way on a particular kind of path. We can do this perfectly. And so as a result, this is going to be a wits thing to just program the gun to fire in the right places. and then fire it. So wits with a +2 now, high momentum. What could possibly go wrong? Oh yeah, strong hit. I mean, it's like I said, what could possibly go wrong? We take one more momentum after we are successful. So yeah, the smart gun platform. Oh, importantly, I did not roll a 1 on the action die, so our smart gun thing is still working. We melt him some rocks. Emile is not in the way of them as the slag, molten magma comes down from the ceiling and carves a path. This also didn't make an additional collapse or anything. This is definitely worthy of marking progress on rescuing Vert from the facility. So I'm going to do that. We've got 3 boxes. I think, again, this is just troublesome. There's not a lot to it. Vert had the ability to climb out of here well because, well, a couple of things. One, he's taller. He had the power armor to just grip into the wall and everything. It's a bit high to just climb out when there's not like a ladder in place or anything like that. I think that's going to be the next challenge is Emile has to get inside to get to Vert. And in this case, the solution that we have is the next gadget, the mobility belt. Have that help him hover up just enough to get up there, and ideally go through without having to actually touch the spots that are still really hot from melting the rocks. He doesn't want to have to wait for them to cool down naturally, but maybe with the mobility belt he can get through without touching the sides. Let's see what we can do with that. I think this one is going to be an edge move, because it's the agility of getting through properly without touching anything. It's going to be edge with the +1 from the mobility belt, and we get... Which, man, that thing is soon... We're going to definitely have to... when we get back to the ship in the fiction, Emile's going to have to make some new propellant for that, because we've been using the hell out of it. Edge of the +1. Oh! Oh, no. So, I rolled a miss with a match on this, a double 5 match. Also, the action die was a 1, so the mobility belt is going to break. However, let's not forget, I've got high momentum. I could burn that momentum to turn this into a strong hit with a match. Now, that would still break the mobility belt because that doesn't change that the action die is a 1, and those are the rules. But I'm totally going to do that. Are you kidding me? Miss of the match, become strong hit with a match? There's no turning down that kind of deal, especially in this kind of situation. So, it's a strong hit, so we get 1 momentum back. We're back up to 3. We got to figure out what the match is again, as Emile sails through properly, sputtering out the last of the propellants and making this belt no longer usable. But he does get through in time. Double 5 match. I guess technically it's kind of like a double nil match. So considering we only got it because I used momentum to cancel it, I'm probably not going to make the match anything that cool. But I'm going to say that having all this kind of success and using his own wiles to make this work well, I'm going to give Emile a point of spirit back. He's getting farther from despair because things are just working well. I'm just going to give him a free spirit as part of that match. His mind is focused. He's feeling better about things. Now Emile's on the other side, and it's really dusty in here from the relatively recent collapse of everything. There's just like rock dust all through the air. It's not wonderful to breathe in. I think he's trying to kind of... He's got his rebreather back in to try and deal with all of that. But as a result, it means he can't like call out to Vert or anything. And there's a lot of rubble in this room. It's hard to kind of navigate. I've not given him another hit of progress because the next big obstacle is indeed finding Vert in this sort of maze of rubble and dust and everything. And I think the way Emile is going to try and go about this is he can't call out to Vert without breathing in way too much just dust and everything. I mean, he could, but he's hoping to not have to. He's going to use the radio on his computer to just signal out, to send basically a artificial voice communication out to the radio that tells Vert to just make a steady signal on his so that he can trace it. It's basically just like, just keep talking, I'll trace the signal. So I'm not going to make Emile roll to have the like artificial voice generated. That's easily done. I'm not even going to make him roll to compel Vert to do that because Vert doesn't have any reason not to. We're just going to roll to see how well can Emile trace the signal to get to the right spot without putting himself in danger as he tries to triangulate it. Because obviously at any given moment there could be more collapses and stuff. That's definitely still on the table. And so I think I'm going to consider this a secure and advantage in order to trace his signal like this, to figure out where is he coming from and how to navigate that. I think you could easily make the argument for it being a face danger if you wanted to just wrap up the entire process of also getting there into one move. But I'm going to separate this out into figure out his location, then get to it, and all that. So we're securing an advantage to figure out where he is by tracing the signal rather than having to just look for him. Doing that with just a straight wits roll, and we get... Okay, a weak hit. That was almost a miss of the match. One of the challenge dice just moved onto another edge to not make that happen. But it's a weak hit, so as usual we can get 2 momentum or 1 on our next move. I'm actually kind of torn between those two. I could definitely use the momentum right now. We're sitting only at a 3, but with a +1 on our next move, I think that's what I'm going to go for this time. I think it's... and it makes sense. We're going to be better at getting to his location because we know directly where to go. So we're going to take the +1. Sadly, getting there is definitely going to be another kind of like squeeze, and we don't have the mobility belt's help anymore. It's going to be about climbing over rubble and stuff. Actually, this may even be an iron move. I think there are just... it's not even about like squeezing through things. It's about climbing over stuff and like moving certain things out of the way. This is going to be really reliant on Emile's strength. I guess he could kind of melt his way through some of the rubble and stuff as well, but there are probably some sections where it's a little bit too close to call. Like, he's getting too close to where the signal is from, and you wouldn't want to risk it. So the real thing that you need to do is just kind of some iron right now. It's strength, it's endurance. He's getting tired through this process. Iron with a +1. Which turns into another weak hit. So you succeed, but not without cost. Make a suffer move -1. So we're able to get to Vert's spot. Our suffer move is definitely going to be... it's going to be a health one. Because I think in this process, like some... as we said, there could be future collapses and stuff. And it's not a full-on ceiling collapse, but some things are resting on others. There's some stacks shift. Some rubble came down in an unexpected way during this process of climbing over things. And in order to get... it didn't fall on Emile, but in order to get out of the way quickly, he had to kind of like jump off of something really quickly to just dodge out of the way. And he took a hard landing. That's why it's only a -1. He hits the ground hard. Health is down to 2. I'm going to try and endure that. Getting a miss. It is worse than you thought. Suffer an additional -1 health or -2 momentum. I don't want his health to get too low. I wouldn't ordinarily do this, but I'm actually going to bring my momentum down to 1. Emile hits the ground hard and has to sit there for a bit while he knocks the wind out of himself, in addition to like really hurting his ribs, and like he hits the ground hard, and this takes the wind from his sails and his lungs for a bit. Sits on the ground recovering, eventually is able to muster to get it going again as he kind of like shouts into the rebreather, which muffles it all. But he's there. He's at the right spot where Vert is inside. Vert can probably even see him, his head like sticking out from this pile that he's in, and commiserates with him like, "Oh man, that looked like it hurt. Thanks for coming." And then like he looks with his eyes towards the pile and goes, "So what's the plan with this? Been too heavy, haven't been able to lift it off myself." And Emile, once he catches his breath and everything, gestures towards his gun, keeping the rebreather in his mouth for a moment. Oh, and I suppose Vert would probably be coughing a lot more than that, because he's been breathing this for a while, and it's not wonderful. "What's the plan? What's the plan for the pile?" His just voice is really dry. Emile, with the rebreather in, picks up the gun and gestures to it, and Vert does not understand at first, thinks Emile's just trying to blast it, and is like, No, don't blast the pile. It's gonna be more, you're gonna get yourself killed. And Emile like holds his hand up to silence him and just gives a demonstration on something farther away, and shows like, has the gun aim at something back in a like as safe an area as possible, just for a quick demonstration to show like, no, I'm just melting rocks. Oh, I'm reminded I should take my second hit of progress for rescuing Vert, because we got to his location. Emile does this demonstration. I think Vert's probably not in his right mind right now. He's been trapped under rubble. He's been breathing in all of this dust. I actually am going to make Emile do a compel move to get him to calm down, because I think if he doesn't, he inadvertently might struggle in a way that still disrupts this process and gets himself hit by the gun when Emile actually does it. So Emile needs to calm him down with this demonstration. This is just a simple compel, not even with words, but just body language, the demonstration, everything to just cool your jets, man. I'm not just going to shoot you. It's fine. nor am I going to make the pile, like, don't worry, we're fine. I think the problem is that Vert is too familiar with the gun and recognizes that, like, is not a precise enough implement to be able to blast away the rocks and not me. Little does he know how Emile has modified it. So let's do a compel with heart. See if Emile is successful at getting him to calm down. That's a miss. They refuse or make a demand that costs you greatly. Pay the price. It's just going to be a refuse. Because I can't imagine what his demand would be. He's definitely not going to be like, no, find another way to get me out of there. The situation isn't there, but it just represents how he can't calm himself down. And so the price is that Emile now has to face danger to avoid, like, as Vert is doing all of this, he's shifting the pile and stuff and knocking stuff off, and Emile has to dodge some things. Emile has to dodge some things to avoid getting pinned himself, because the power armor means that Vert can jostle quite a bit. And Emile is going to try and basically just... There's a falling bit of rubble. Emile's going to have to just dodge out of the way of some falling rubble immediately as a result of that failure. And even still, Vert won't calm down, so Emile afterwards is going to have to try and deal with that situation, or free him quickly. So anyway, this is a regular old edge move. We don't have any momentum to rely on. Okay, we do get a strong hit though. So we're successful, we take +1 momentum, we're back to a +2. We're able to dodge out of the way this falling rubble and without hurting ourselves or anything. And Emile, I think, recognizes he's got to do this. He's got to step back a little bit because being by the pile is too dangerous. He is going to try and just melt this away. Having some flashbacks right now to the last time that it was using this kind of device in a fallen pile, and he's worried about accidentally doing something that's going to kill somebody trapped underneath rubble. A lot of things he's trying to put out of his mind right now. But he takes a step back, calms himself, and we are first going to... We're going to make some preparations here by securing an advantage. I think we're going to have our computer system analyze the rubble as best as possible, seeing that it's so easy to disrupt in dangerous ways. Like, it's behaving a little bit unpredictably. He needs some computer simulation help to help determine where should he melt the rocks that is a good combination of... It's close enough to Vert to allow him the mobility to move, but won't make the stack shift as a result of it to then, like, have it all come back down on him. He doesn't want to disrupt the Jenga tower, but he needs to pull some blocks. And that's going to require some computer help. So we're going to secure an advantage with wits. Okay, we get a weak hit. Oh, almost got a strong hit, but not quite. So we can either add the 2 momentum or the 1 on the next move. I'm going to get the 1 on the next move. So +1 to this move to indeed use our edge to melt away the right stuff. Actually, I guess last time I did this, I did rule that we could just program it with the computer. I didn't have to use edge. I could use wits. So wits with a +1 to use those calculations to program in, fire the gun exactly like this to remove this rock. And we also don't want the molten rock to fall on Vert, so that's been calculated for. We've planned this out appropriately with computer assistance. Let's use our +1 on the face danger to do it. Oh no. So close. I got a result of a 9, but the dice were a 9 and a 10. I'm just glad it wasn't a double 10 complication here. That would have totally been like, and then you melt his head off. The gun goes haywire. Now, it is still a miss though. So you fail, or momentary success is undermined by a dire turn of events. And again, I'm going to go for that. I think it's just that the computer tried its best, but the route wasn't... Maybe the plan is calculated correctly, but something happens that, like, rubble falls behind Emile and it startles him, and he jerks in response to it, and the smart gun system doesn't work fast enough to compensate for his own just, like, utter jumping like that. It can compensate for a little bit of body movement, but it was too wild of a movement, and so it goes off path completely and melts the wrong thing. And so now there's a split second as it becomes clear the rubble is falling, and it's going to fall directly on Vert's face. It's going down that way. Vert has not yet had a chance to clear himself because he's still kind of freaking out a little bit, especially seeing this happening. Maybe he had good reason to be telling Emile he shouldn't be doing this. Emile notices it in time through the help of his AR, seeing the micro adjustments that are happening to know, like, oh shit, it's a coming. This kind of almost goes into a sort of bullet time as Emile desperately needs to get Vert out of the pile before it falls and crushes him in. And in this moment of desperation, he has got no choice but to try and run up and use an iron move to try and pull Vert enough out of the pile fast enough that Vert can help himself out and everything, or maybe take it not on his face but on the armor. Emile has a split seconds, no time to set anything up or secure any advantages. We got no momentum to rely on, we got no +1s, and we certainly don't have a lot of iron to our name. But maybe the dice have our back. Face danger with iron as he tries to pull Vert out of the pile in time. Can we do it? Strong hit. Fuck yes. Believe in the dice. On a strong hit, you are successful. Take +1 momentum. Split seconds in bullet time. Emile grabs him by the shoulders, and with adrenaline coursing, giving him a strength he does not ordinarily possess, even wearing this heavy power armor, Emile pulls Vert out of the pile in time to at least get Vert's arms freed enough to be able to use them on his own. He then is able to use the power of the power armor to push back faster, pushing both of them clear before it falls. He has Vert free from the stack, neither of them having gotten hurt. I'm going to give us another mark of progress on that, because with Vert fully freed like this and the path clear, there's not really much in the way of obstacle to get back out. It's hard to see, Vert is still coughing and everything, but I think we are close enough that Emile can certainly make the progress roll now to just hand wave the rest of it. So we're going to finish this vow, and we get an easy strong hit. Now it was a 9 versus a 1 and a 2. With that kind of result, we could have rescued Vert as soon as we made a hole in the ground. But our vow is fulfilled. We get our 1 tick on the quest legacy track. 1 little tick. And more importantly, on the outside we see, covered in rock dust and hacking cough, they come out through the sewer, climbing back up. Emile with an arm around Vert, returning to the stardust. They think they're going to get a bit of a hero's welcome on it all. But sadly at this moment, Dash isn't in the cockpit watching or anywhere near. Dash has indeed gone exploring. And Dash has found himself over at the area of the brig where there is an energy wall that is keeping the captain contained inside of a cell. He's cocked his head a little bit curiously as the captain looks up at him, doing his best to look miserable on the ground and undeserving of this treatment. But as for whether or not that's going to be successful, well, that's a question for next time. You know, recently I've been doing a lot of these that are kind of related to the content of the episode, but I'm going to go back to the old style here and give you a couple of prompts that are just a completely abstract idea. So this time I want you to use the prompts I'm about to give you and give me a smell. And the prompts we're going to use for that are escort and protection. So this one could be a really simple one. Just when you hear escort and protection, what does that make you think of? And as a result, what is one smell that you associate with that concept? If you feel like some of the other ones are a little bit creatively intimidating because they're too big of an idea, this one should be a really little one. Just what smell does escort and protection make you think of? For whatever reason. Send in your ideas to me at starforgedpod@gmail.com. I look forward to hopefully hearing some of them, but until then, play me out, music.